Think we might be close. We are live. What's going on, everybody? Here we are. Today is May 6th. It is noon. And this one's going to be a little bit different. We are talking about the first this is the first jumping off video for FC Pro. And what we're going to be doing, making sure I'm not on mute. That would have been fun for the start of it. We're going to walk through lineup study. I'm going to touch on everything, over the next couple of weeks. This time, every Monday is going to be just a solo show of mine, taking a look at something in depth, leading into office hours in our premium Slack channel from the end of this video. So, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12:45 to 1 o'clock Eastern, I will be in our premium Slack taking questions for, 45 minutes to an hour. So this felt like the perfect lead in to that. Really excited about all of the FC Pro features. We have an article and a video up at awesemo.com, which I guess I can drop the link to. Hindsight, I should have done that ahead of time. Also looking to buy my mom some flowers for Mother's Day. So on the off chance that you're watching this, Mom, spoiler alert, you're going to get flowers. But let me grab the link right now to the FC Pro post. I did a small video there walking through all of the new features. But if you want to check that out, it's coming imminently for us. But the link is now in chat. But let's dive in right now. Let's see. Do we need to let a couple extra people trickle in? Let's let a couple other people trickle in first, and then we'll get started. But what I have up on the screen right now that you guys can see is what amounts to the landing page of Lineup Study. When you click on it, this is going to be what you see when you get here. And clear the throat quick. I love this tool. It makes me jealous that it wasn't something that I just did, 4 years ago. The process was significantly more manual at that point. Lots of weird Excel lookups to get this sort of information. And now Dave at Fantasy Cruncher and Manny, helped to put this tool out, and now a part of FC Pro. It's just awesome. It's the perfect way to be able to analyze what everybody else is doing and try to figure out what you're doing correctly or incorrectly, depending on the, how you want to look at it. So let's just dig in. Like I said, when you open up Lineup Study, this is for baseball in particular, this would be the first screen you would see. And what this is a list of every single tournament on Draftkings that happened yesterday. Every slate, you'll see the date here. So it's site Draftkings, MLB, yesterday's date, the particular slate that it was involved in. So obviously every slate is going to be covered here. How many games were in that slate? The actual contest name. If you click on that contest, you'll get a direct link to it on Draftkings, so you can dig in a little bit further. We get the costs, prize pools, how many lineups you can put in. So if you want to just be looking at tournaments that have 150 max or 20 max, all of that information is right in front of you. You can filter those things. So if I just wanted 150 lineups to show up, I can click on the little filter box. There's probably a name for what those three lines mean. But if I just type in 150 here, that'll give me just the contest that took 150 lineups. We've got entries. Every piece of available content or data for each tournament is here as a summary. You even get to find out who the winner was. That's all well and good. That's just summary information. What we're really worried about is what happened in that tournament. So we could start by clicking this Analyze button, taking a peek at, in this case, yesterday's mini-max on Draftkings. And this is where I assume people will see this and their jaws will drop. Every single person that's in this tournament, every single lineup they played is tracked, aggregated, and bucketed so that you can look at everything. And I think this is going to change the game for daily fantasy, because now everybody knows what everybody's doing. Everybody knows the structures of their lineup construction. It's all on the table now. And figuring out what works best is the next step. Some people will have very different strategies. Even just amongst the pros, you'll see very different strategies. They can all lead to the same outcome. So right now, like I mentioned, we are looking at the mini-max. I can hop back to this tournaments tab, and I can open the rally cap as well, and you'll just get a list of everything. So I can bounce back and forth between multiple tournaments. So if I want to analyze over a couple different things. Let's start with the screen that I have on right now, and we'll start it on this rally cap. Get two sections: individual players and their exposures, or individual users and their lineup summary. So what you're getting from left to right here, every individual username. Now, when you open it, it's going to be in order of finish. So it's username, the amount of lineups that this person put in here. You can see that the person that finished third in the rally cap did so with a single bullet. You'll see the top two guys both put in 150. You'll also see the number of lines that they had cash. So this Zap F75 had 46 of their 150 cash. They had 42 of 150. Papa Gates got 60 of 150. You can come down to petty theft. You see 81 of 150. Next up, it's profit. So the amount of money that you won after accounting for your entry fees. You'll get the column of your highest score, your highest scored finish, the number of players used in all of your lineups. So Zap F75, 114 players. You drop down to Papa Gates, 98. 1-800 Eddie, friend of the program. Shout out to the man behind all the tech of Osimo. He had 101. Petty Theft had 91. Mr. Good Seats had 90. You'll see very different numbers here. And then finally, the number of unique teams that were stacked. So 12 in this case. Papa Gates got to 14. 1-800 Eddie got to 12. You get quick summary information of every individual user. You can sort these, or you can just search for specific people. I can deselect everyone here. I can search for Osimo. I can search for Ship My Money. I could search for 1-800 Eddie. You could add in a big list. You can make the Osimo filter and check and see how everybody did. Eddie, on this particular tournament, did really well. But right out of the gate, you can see the difference between, Eddie played 80 lineups here. Used 101 players in that. Ship My Money only used 75. There's no right or wrong answer to some of this stuff. What works on one slate could work differently on another. But you have the ability to look and see what everybody is doing. If we come over here to the player exposure section, most of this will be self-explanatory. You get a player name, their position, where they hit in the order, salary, all this stuff should be normal. The team, what the implied total was, the game that they were in, and what the full total was for the game. What I'm going to do right now, just to make it a little bit easier to see, I'm going to remove a couple columns here. So if you click on that 3 horizontal lines, and then you click over here on the 3 vertical lines, you could take some columns out. So I'm going to take out team total. I'm going to take out game. I'm going to take out game total just to have a little bit more screen real estate. Then I'm going to fit the columns to the table so everything has the right spacing. Now you can see every single person, how much they scored, what their value per $1,000 was, the amount of times they were used, and their total exposures. So let's just sort right out of the gate. Let's see who the chalkiest players were on the slate. right off the bat, you see Julio Tailoring, 45% owned in this tournament. JD Martinez, 34. Spencer Turnbull, 32. You can go down the line and figure out what the best plays were. If you wanted to sort by just fantasy points, you'll see Starling Marte and his walk-off home run from yesterday went from not that interesting of a play to the best overall fantasy score on the entire slate, including pitchers. That's just one thing to dig into. But you can add different players, different users rather, to this. So let's say we wanted to take a look at 1-800-EDDIE. I can click this button with the arrow next to 1-800-EDDIE's name, and you'll see that he's now populated over here. If I make the columns fit, now you can see Eddie's exposure in comparison to the public. Public at 22% Christian Yelich. You see that Eddie was willing to come in at 52%. This was Eddie's most exposed player on the entire slate. You'll see that he is over the field on Ryan Braun, over the field on Pablo Lopez. Generally speaking, the guys that you are highest on, they're going to be probably the guys that you're most over the field on as well. But you can also look at it the opposite direction. Julio Tailoring was the chalk. Eddie just came in slightly under that. JD Martinez, the chalk hitter, much, much below that number. You can add even more than one player if you want to take a look at Uticow. And bro, or let's add Papa Gates. Now we've got all three guys in front of us. You can see the different breakdown of exposures. We can try to get an idea of how people feel about chalk, how people feel about leverage in comparison to lineups against chalky pitchers. Tons of options here. So let's look at the next step of this, because this is just summary information. You're happy to see this. You're really, you get an idea of what everybody is doing in relationship to each other. I think it's a really great exercise for people that don't really know what their next step is in DFS. If you're really trying to get better, study the people that are finishing at the top of tournaments on a consistent basis. Not necessarily just because you see one name, although it's always interesting to see how a specific person does. Like if I add their exposure, knowing that the most that they had of anybody was 28% Julio Tailoring. They're basically casting as wide a net as possible and hoping to come up with that correct combination. It worked in this case. But try to follow all the pros. Figure out what they're doing. Figure out what they do in relationship to you and why. The questions will answer themselves. But sometimes you want more than just the summary information to see maybe people are doing something a little bit more specific. So let's go ahead and click on 1-800-EDDIE's, what are they called? Magnifying glass? Yeah. Now I get just Eddie's lineups. And this is where I think it gets really crazy. And I'm going to go through every column here just so everybody knows what we're looking at. We'll do a couple more edits as well and resorts. To find out, this is every single lineup, all 80 lineups that Eddie played. The rank, how much money that won, how much profit that is, the score, how much total salary was used. I think that's a very important thing for people to pay attention to, especially in baseball, where I feel like most people probably don't leave enough salary on the table. And you can see here, certainly Eddie had a bunch of lineups that hit 50K, but at the same time, he was willing to go all the way down to 44.8, 45.9, 46.5, leaving thousands of dollars on the table. In baseball, it's a unique opportunity to leave salary on the table because each team is going to get, in theory, the same sort of opportunities. Everybody bats in a specific order. So knowing that, there's no need to spend more if you have to, if you're trying to get a unique lineup. And in this case, spending $4,400 or $44,800 out of 50K will do that. You can see how many times people had that lineup. So if I sort this by dupes, this lineup here that Eddie has at the top was duplicated by 2 other entries in the tournament. So was this one, so was this one. This group here was in this tournament twice. The rest of his lineups are all completely unique. Now, in general, you're hoping to get everything to be unique, but as owners, well, obviously on smaller slates, there's going to be more overlap, and the more chalky your lineup is, the more likely you are to have duplicates. It's just a function of how this works. You'll see that the lineup that Eddie actually finished highest with, which was this 14th place, actually had a duplicated person. So someone else split 14th with him. You can also take a look and see total exposure. So what this is showing you is essentially how chalky is this lineup. This is the total sum of all of the exposure in that particular lineup. We're going from 251.5, which is Eddie's technically chalkiest lineup, all the way down to 78.5, which is his least chalky lineup. There's something to be said for being unique enough that you're not getting duplication in your lineups, but also not being so unique that it's a combination that will likely have no ceiling. You can probably put together a lineup where the expected ownership totals, 10%. You get 10 1% owned guys. The reason that those 10 would be at 1% is basically because that lineup is not going to win. Now, there comes a level where you want to be more chalky, less chalky. It all depends on the slate. But this is one of the things that you can pay attention to while you're trying to do some digging. But the feature that is best here, and I hope that it's clear from the screenshot, understanding how people are stacking, the different ways they're stacking, and sort of which teams they're stacking. So right here, the team stacks section, this is summarizing the stacks in a graphical manner. This first line that we'll sort it back by how well the lineups did. Number 1 line, the one that finished 14th, 5-man Red Sox stack with a 3-man Pirate stack. You can even get more details. You can see the exact lineup placement of the stack. In this case, Boston was a 2-3-4-6-8. That's the second hitter, third hitter, fourth hitter, sixth hitter, eighth hitter. And the 3-man Pirate stack, 1-2-7. But immediately after that, you'll get a 5-man White Sox stack with the Red Sox, another 5-3 of Boston-Pittsburgh, and then 2 separate teams completely. A 5-man hitting stack of the Brewers, plus the Brewers starter in Zach Davies, and then a 3-man Mariners stack. It breaks down everything. You get every piece of the puzzle. And if you want to summarize it a little bit differently, you can take this team stacks column header and just drag it up slightly. You'll see there's a section here that takes filters. So what I'm doing is now filtering all of this data simply by team stacks. And now I'm going to sort here by count. And then I'm going to hold in Shift and sort by profit. So what you're seeing is how often a certain group of stacks were used. Eddie used a 5-man White Sox stack with a 2-man Red Sox stack 4 separate times. He had 3 different 4 counts. 5-man White Sox with a 2-man Red Sox, 5-man White Sox with a 3-man Brewers, and 5-man Marlins unstacked elsewhere. But you can open these up and then get back to that summary information to see the actual splits, to see what the makeup of those stacks were, what the actual players were that were in these stacks. You get it all right here. And you can dig into each individual player. Some guys are going to have one team very specifically aggressively stacked. Some guys are going to cast a wide net. This one's pretty spread out. But this gives you all of the summary information of Eddie's stacks. And you get to see it graphically because of the way that we filtered team stacks. You can also simply just take this section, team stack type, and get an idea of the construction of all of the lineups. So as I mentioned before, Eddie did 80 lineups here. What we're seeing is the summary of how he stacked. 22 of those 80 lineups were 5-man, 3-man stacks. 16 of them were 5-2-1s. 11 of them were the same 5-3 stacks, but they also included the main pitcher. So it ended up being a 6-3. We got 5 individual naked stacks. You'll see if I open that back up, it's a couple 5-man Marlins, 5-man White Sox happened twice, a 5-man Mets stack happened once. But this gives you all of the breakdown of individual stack types. You can also still see, how did those individual stack types do? What was the total amount of winnings? What was the total amount of profit? What was the max score? You get all of that information right here. You can see just how specific players did. So if you wanted to know, let's say, how well did all of Eddie's Mitch Moreland lineups did. Go ahead, select Mitch Moreland. And now we've got 6 lineups from Eddie with Mitch Moreland in them. Most of the time it was coming in a Red Sox 5-man. Sometimes it was coming in a secondary stack for the Red Sox, but this is just Mitch Moreland lineups. If you wanted to look at something like that individually, simply just clear that filter. I'll reselect all the first basemen. We get everybody back. But if you don't want to look at just one person, you can click here on this Stacks tab and find out all of the different stacks that existed for everything. 6-man stacks. So a 5-man hitter stack with the pitcher showed up in 6.8% of the entries for this tournament. A 4-man stack happened 31% of the time. 5-mans happened 37% of the time. The 3-man came in 54% of the time. And 91% of the lineups, 91% of the 19,968 entries into the Rally Cap yesterday had a 2-man stack in them. You can just open that up and find out who those people even were. But let's look at the bigger ones. We have 6-man stacks. They happen just under 7% of the time. You can find out immediately what teams they were. The most stacked team, Milwaukee Brewers. That makes some sense. Zach Davies was a pay down option. Getting a full 5-man stack with the Brewers happened more times than anybody else. They were the most stacked they were the highest full stack team with a pitcher. And you could open it up and find out exactly how many times every single one of those combinations happened. So we have 431 unique 6-man Brewers stacks. You can find out how often they happened. 89 of the entrants, which you'll see right here, of the 19,968 had this 5-man plus pitcher combination. Kane, Yelich, Braun, Aguilar, Perez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the pitcher 89 times. You get it all, though. You get the amount of times that it happened, their total salary, their total fantasy points, each individual player's exposure. You can see how everything did. It's all right here. It's incredibly valuable information. You can change the way this information is displayed. I can switch this to just teams. And now we can see Brewers, most exposed team. Red Sox second, Indians third. But now that I'm looking at it, I can just see individual team stacks. I want to see what the 5-man Red Sox stacks were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Benintendi, Bogarts, Martinez, Devers, Moreland. 133 entries. You can find out what everybody is doing to a T. And this is incredibly valuable if you have no idea what you want to do. The easiest way that you can start getting yourself into MMEing is trying to replicate something you see. the mini max is going to be the lowest 150 tournament. I understand that $150 is going to be a lot for people. This is something that you can practice even if you just wanted to enter the quarter arcade. So, it's going to cost you $5 to enter those 20 lineups. But you can study individual people to figure out how they approach a 20 max or a 150 max, whatever. But to be able to drill in and have every piece of information at your fingertips, every single 4-man stack for the Brewers, 86 times you get 1, 3, 4, 5. You get it all. You find out exactly how well those stacks did, all of their fantasy points. It's so much information that it's almost information overload. And it's all here. And you can do this for every single tournament. You can bounce from the rally cap to the mini max, compare, try to get an idea of if people are approaching those tournaments differently. It's all just at your fingertips. And it's just fascinating to see. Here's another filter that we can do. We can filter by salary. That's every single salary combination. 7,419 of the 1,900, or let's just say 20,000 entries. 7,500 of them almost spent every single cent that they could. And you'll see, it pretty much goes straight down the line. Next up was 49.9. Next up, 48.8. Next up, 49.7. Just not spending a couple $100 is immediately making you more unique in that tournament. Now, it depends how big the field is, if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But on a big slate, just not having all of your salary spent is going to dramatically help your chances of not getting overlap. We scroll all the way down to the bottom. You'll see 42 people did not enter lineups. Kudos to them. We got someone as low as 41.4. Sean Zahn. Let's take a look at Sean Zahn and see what we have here, because typically Sean Zahn is going to be, let's say, a little aggressive. That's probably the best way to describe it. So let's see who Sean Zahn had in this tournament last night. Let's grab team stacks. And lo and behold, lots of naked stacks at the top. 12 5-man White Sox, 12 5-man Indians, 8 A's, 8 Royals, 5 Mets, 4 Red Sox. Lots of naked stacks. Tigers got to 6 total, a couple including the pitcher. But you do still see the exposure to multiple combinations. We're all over the map here. One individual stack of all of these combinations until we get here. And then we start to get the overlap of just 5-man. So you can start to get an idea of how different Eddie's exposures. If we bring up team stacks again. Eddie's exposures compared to Sean Zahn's. Very, very different methodology. That's the word we're looking for. You get the information so differently. And it's kind of fascinating to run. What we're seeing here is just so many naked stacks. I mean, we're getting 63 of the 150 are fully naked 5XXX stacks. 100 of the 150 are either 5-man naked or 5-2-1s. Even if we wanted to count the 6 stack group, so times where you're getting the full stack plus the pitcher. I mean, that's what we're getting here. We are not getting a lot of differentiation. We are getting a very steady amount of either a full 5-man stack, potentially with the pitcher, or 2-man stacks are naked. Only 3 of all 150 lines from Sean Zahn were 5-3 stacks. That's aggressive. That's an interesting take. I probably have more. On the other end, you'll see Eddie, 22, more than any other setup. 22 of his lineups were 5-3 stacks. So you're seeing 2 guys that are major players in the DFS industry coming to completely different conclusions with roster construction. And that's a bigger talking point than gets noticed. We get questions a lot of, what should I make my settings? What should I set randomness at? What should I set uniques at? What do you do for stacks? Now, this is obviously going to be helpful because people can look up at least some of those questions, but every answer is kind of unique to the player. It's going to be unique to the projection system that you have. It's going to be unique to your individual level of risk. So it's really hard to get a one-size-fits-all feel when you see two guys that, are DFS pros approach it in completely different ways. What works for Eddie might not work for Sean, and vice versa. So you want to find out everything that you can and start to tailor your settings and your strategy to what will benefit you most. And this is where FC Rewind will come into play, where you can try to recreate what these guys are doing. If you want to try to recreate Shanzan's method of, using aggressive full stacks, then you can hop into FC Rewind and set up your settings like that and crunch to see, how well that works for you. Or you can try to be more spread out, like Eddie, use different combinations, not lock into one specific thing. A lot of these settings changes are going to do more for your daily variance than anything else. For Shanzan, you're going to be more apt to see major swings. Eddie's is probably, going to have a higher floor, lower ceiling type days. But you can dig into everybody. Every single lineup that is in every single tournament is now available to be looked at. But just take a look and see. There were two separate lineups here that left $5,200 on the table. That's just craziness. What's really crazy about it is that it's the two people we're looking at right now. 1-800-EDDIE and Shanzan are the only two entrants to have $4,400 or $44,800. And yet we have this sea of people playing at 50,000. Seems like it's probably too many for baseball. This could be something to track. You'll see that of every single lineup that spent the entire salary cap, they were actually down quite a bit from a profitability standpoint. The number one profitable combination at the top ended up being 49.8. Now, that doesn't mean that you should set your fantasy cruncher settings to only spit out 49.8. That's silly. I mean, here's the craziest piece of it all. All of the profit was in three different salary groups, 49.8, 49.7, and 49.1. If you had a different salary structure here, you were part of the negative. Everything is congregated right here. And that's because of how top heavy these the prize pools are. But this is where I think that people can really change up the game. Finding an individual that they want to study for a particular day, checking out their entrance, and then going to another day and seeing how they approach that slate. Seeing how someone like Shanzan approaches a 4-game slate and a 6-game slate and an 8-game slate and a 10-game slate, because you're going to see differences in all of them. I mean, let's just hop to a different slate and we'll see what else Shanzan has been doing. So let's hop to let's go to Friday. So I'm just going to change the date here, update. We'll take a look at the extra inning, the $10 150 max. I just click the analyze button. It immediately, every one of the other tournaments that I was looking at is still here. And let's find Shanzan. See how he did. Let's grab a couple people. Let's grab the boss man. Let's see, Ship My Money play this one? Grab Ship My Money. 1-800-EDDIE play this one? He did not. What about Tom? Tom is in. That's 4. Not the best day for any of the pros on this one. But here's a very clear look at the different ways people can play. everybody's playing the same amount of teams for the most part. You're in the mid-20s. Sean's on up to 206 players. Adam and Tom both in the 150s. So Shanzan had, close to 40 more individual players in his player pool, comparatively speaking, to Adam and Tom. Osmo a little bit higher. You'll see, the amount of lineups that cached all over the map. But let's take a look and see what Shanzan's makeup here was on this slate. And again, 83 of his 150 lineups were 5-man full stacks, completely naked. Or, if you want to add in the 12 with the pitcher, 95 of his 150 lineups were 5-man stacks that didn't have anything else with them. They're 1-1-1s. So either 6-1-1-1 or 5-1-1-1. Only other option was 5-2-1. So you can see very clearly what sort of settings Shanzan is using for Cruncher in terms of his stack settings. But if we hop back here and check out Alex's, we take a look at his stacks. A little bit more spread out. 5 2s, 4 4s, 5 3s, 5-man nakeds, 4 3s. Getting a lot of different lineup construction from Alex than you are from Shanzan. That doesn't mean one of these guys is more right or wrong than the other. I mean, the boss man's just always right. That's the reason his name is on the marquee. But it just goes to show you that there's more than one way to skin a cat, which apparently is like a bad thing to say now. So my apologies to the people that are hurt by that. This is what you can do, though, with Lineup Rewind and with lineup study. I would want to go through lineup study. And this is honestly, think of this like a homework assignment right now. My recommendation to you once you get your hands on lineup study is to start studying individual pros. And I would prioritize doing one guy at a time over a couple days, and then switch to someone else. Try to find someone that you can tell has a different strategy altogether. But if you want it to be Alex, seems like a pretty reasonable place to start, with him being the number one player in the rankings and all. Come in, filter everything down for just Alex's lineups. I'll open up the filter. I'll select Alex. Boom. I've got just Alex's lineups here. I want to know how much salary is he willing to spend on this particular slate. I don't remember how many games. I'm just going to open up the contest just to see how many games were in the slate on the 3rd. Can't remember now. I guess I can tell from here. So if I unfilter, select everybody here, whoop, and just sort here by team. So 26. So yeah, okay. So this was the 13 gamer. We lost the 2 games, we lost the game due to weather. Now I remember. So what we want to know is, how is Alex breaking down the teams? How many different teams is he really using? So for his priority, his main stack, an Atlanta 5-man was Alex's main stack in this tournament here. 14 individual Atlanta 5-mans. And he's all over the map with that. An A's stack, some Marlins stacks, Giants, Red Sox, Phillies, Indians, Royals, 1-1-1, 1-1-1, 1-1-1, bunch of 1-1-1s. That gets a lot of coverage. If the Braves happen to be the team that has an outlier performance, let's say we get 3 or 4 home runs, maybe 1 or 2 multi-run home runs. And you'll know that if you do get that right, you have options that can work. Maybe it's the Giants 2-man that pops up, or the Red Sox, or the Marlins. You're giving yourself a couple different combinations. So I think that's interesting. Alex had a similar amount of Oakland, a similar amount of Detroit, a similar amount of Rays. And that's when you start to see the ways that construction can play a part. You get to that 5-man A's stack, and now we're all over the map again. Diamondbacks, Red Sox, Giants, Rays, Phillies, Indians, Braves. What you're seeing is a person with a relatively tight core at the top, rotating through the rest of the filler. Steve in chat says, dude, the pros all play $2,000 plus daily. I can study their lineup construction for years, but won't give the capital they have. Yeah, I mean, if you think that, sorry for you. I would think that if I did more research, it might help me to increase my own capital. If you think that every pro started with a bankroll of $100,000 or something, you're sorely mistaken. A lot of people started at the same spot. Just because you don't play as much money as them doesn't mean that this isn't informative and can't help you win more money. They're not the same thing. I think it's fascinating to see the way that other people play and sort of model this myself. Even before I came to Osimo, I spent a lot of time looking through Alex's lineups in tournaments. I just didn't have this particular tool to do it. I would look through Alex's lineups. I would look through Chipotle's and Papa Gates. I played Candia in $1 head-to-heads for like 2 years just to see the lineup construction, sort of get an understanding of what he was doing. Utica, anybody. I just want to know that information. In any walk of life, more information is always going to be better for you. So this would be the spot that I would want to be. And this tool is going to grow as more and more people get their hands on it, and as more and more people have suggestions of things that can be added, then we'll see even more and more features hit here that will help you dig into the way people play. And just knowing like how individual teams did. If I want to just see this, group this out by individual players and find out that the most fantasy points were scored by Seattle. The highest valued stacks were Seattle and Boston for the mini max yesterday. You can see just that individual lineup, sort it by batting order. You can see the exposures. It's all here. It's, God, like I can sit here for a full day. I can start my day like a 9 to 5 and sit down at this computer at 9 o'clock and not leave lineup study until 5 o'clock. Because I would pick a player or 2 or 3 or 4 and I would want to know what they do everywhere. I want to see it in small slates, medium slates, huge slates. I want to see if they're constantly taking chances and going way over the field or under the field, or, you know, like if we hop back here, we were taking a look at Shanzan. So let's do that again before we get out of here. Let's do this. Let's deselect everybody here. We're going to do Shanzan. We'll do Osimo. We'll do Tom. And we'll do Ship My Money. And we'll add all of these guys to the table on the right. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to remove team total. I'm going to remove game and game total just so I have a little bit more screen real estate. We'll make this fit. We'll take a look at total exposure. So on May 3rd, in the extra inning, Chris Sale was the most owned player in that tournament. We can see that here. But you can also see the ways in which the public looked at that information. Or the individual players, rather, I think would be the easiest way to say that. So we've got Osimo's exposure. We've got Ship My Money's, Shanzan's, and Tom's. Chris Sale was the highest owned guy, but you can see that Alex and Shanzan were in the 50s. Shit My Money got all the way up to 78%. You'll see that Jared Eichhoff was the second most owned guy in this tournament. All 4 of the guys that we're looking at right now came in under the field. So it's interesting to see where people are pivoting. Maybe we're not pivoting on chalky high-end plays, but we're willing to pivot a little bit more on chalky mid-tier plays. Now, Game Theory in YouTube chat just made a statement that I'd like to touch on. It said, isn't studying the winning lineups more results-oriented? Yes. If you're going to come in to lineup study, look at this tournament and say, I want to see how... I want to see how Piano Club played since they won. I agree. You're not going to glean a lot from a specific winning lineup, because a winning lineup is technically a bad lineup. It's just bad in a positive way for you. So that's not what I would want to do. I would want to study individual users. So if you use that as a jumping off point and did want to look at, say, Piano Club's exposures here, I would then want to do that for multiple slates, create a plan of attack of what that person is doing, and then test those assumptions in FC Rewind, even in the same tournament, where, as I've shown in a previous video, you can select this specific tournament in FC Rewind and find out how your crunch actually does. You'll get net profit numbers while you're crunching. So I would never want to just look at like the winning lineup. I would never want to dig in here and look at this and think, okay, what did I need to do to get to 5-man red stacks and 3-man A's stacks? Because that is what won the tournament. That's not going to be helpful for you. Finding the outlier is not what you want. What you want to do is find the people that are winning more often than not and find out what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. But this is sort of the summary of lineup study. We're going to be touching on this tool a ton. We're going to dig into individual players. We're certainly going to do a capsule on the boss man, and potentially a capsule on Tom, on Eddie. We could take a deeper look into Ship My Money. I'm happy to take a look at my own. This particular Minimax did not go very well, if I remember correctly. See where I finished. Down $39. Ultimately not the worst. Yeah, no problem, Game Theory. Yeah, you don't ever... A tournament, or a lineup that finishes first in a tournament is going to be very far off of the expected value of that lineup. But yeah, you can dig into me. Every single mini-max that I'm entering is going to be here. You can see that I'm running all sorts of different stacks, but 5-2, 5-3, 5 naked, 5-2-2s, it's all here. It's all here. So dig into this. Like I said at the beginning, every single Monday from noon until around this time, I'm going to be doing a piece of content like this, whether it's digging into a tool, digging into a player, talking about something in my sheet. We're going to be coming at every single Monday afternoon with a topic for us to dig into. So this is the first of many walkthroughs of the lineup study tool. Thanks to Dave and Manny for getting this together, making it part of FC Pro, bringing us all together. Next Monday, I believe we'll be taking a very deep look into FC Rewind, which is I'm really excited for it. It's my favorite tool. The amount of time that I've spent in FC Rewind over the past couple years is countless. Hours upon hours upon hours trying to improve my play and learn how to use Fantasy Cruncher. This didn't come with a manual. There's no FC for dummies, although at this point in time there are a couple of us that can probably write it. I just used it and over and over and over again used it so that I can understand it better. Otherwise, you're going to be lost because this industry is only going to get more and more technical. So now is the time to jump on, because we are growing. And I don't necessarily just mean we as an Osmo, but we as an industry are growing at an exponential rate. So you want to get on board now. And, our video content, these sorts of videos are going to be a very good jumping off point. So thank you for joining me. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Please subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications of every single time that our content goes live. As of now, and every single Monday, I will be heading to our premium Slack channel. If you're not a member, this is what you're missing out on. You can join at Osmo.com. In this case, use the promo code MLB Strategy, one big word. It gets you 50% off your first month. And you can come into our premium Slack and have all of the interactions in all of the normal channels. We have office hours. Specifically today, I will be in there. All of the people involved, whether it's Alex or Ship My Money, Laffy, EMAC, Ben, every single sport that we're covering, Jake for hockey, Spags covering basketball and baseball. We all hop into office hours from time to time, and we all try to do about an hour a week of just taking questions and being able to interact with the subs on a direct basis. And that's what I'm about to do right now. So thank you for joining me. Go play around in lineup study. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. My handle is below my head right now. It's at Josh Engelman. Feel free to email me, josh@osmo.com, or if you're a premium sub, reach out in Slack, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Best of luck in your DFSing, everybody. I'll see you guys again next Monday. Bye.